For those of you who, like me, have been in Trinidad for all or a significant part of your life, you may recall, excuse me, medication causing me to have dry mouth. I need to lubricate. You may recall we had 3 Catholic churches. We had 6 to 8 priests between them. Mount Carmel had a Franciscan Sisters who staffed a K-8 school. Trinidad Catholic had Sisters of Charities who staffed a K-12 parochial school. There were additional churches in Segundo, Aguilar, each with their own priests. Trinidad had 2 Safeway stores, and we had at least 10 neighborhood mom and pop stores. We had 3 department stores. Excuse me. It would help if I was better with technology. We had 3 department stores. We had Jameson's, you may recall, especially at Christmas time, the big Christmas tree on the landing between the 1st and 2nd floor. We had Montgomery Ward, we had J.C. Penney's. Montgomery Ward had an auto department. We had 2 5 and 10 stores, Ben Franklin and Crest. My mom worked at Ben Franklin's for probably 30 years. Not counting the department stores, we had 4 clothing stores for men, Dufton's, Ichabone's, Town and Country, and Alpert's. If you needed a shirt for homecoming, you could find one. We had 3 shoe stores, Merson's, Carl's, and the Fashion Shoe Store. We had 8 women's clothing stores, The Budget, Moto Day, 2 Salmar stores, Le Levon, Jolton's, Moses, and Terrabino's. I see smiles from the people who remember those names. We had 3 discount stores. We had Pixie's, we had Gibson's, and we had Haps. We had 2 sporting goods stores, and 2 music stores, and a camera shop, and an electronics store. And some of those had, we had 4 pharmacies downtown, Hosman's, Market Time, Walgreens, and Riverside. 2 of them had soda fountains where you could get lunch. Ben Franklin's had a fountain too. We had 3 hardware stores. We had Gamble's, Coast to Coast, and Western Auto. If you needed to buy a deep freeze, you had options. We had Hey Dad's Home Furnishings and Appliances. We had Hinkle's Appliances. We had, and music instruments. Well, that's where my mom bought my saxophone when I was in school at Primero and learning to be involved with music. We had 3 theaters downtown, the Fox, the Strand, and the Isis, plus the drive-in on the east end of town. We had St. Michael's Religious Gift Store and Bernelli's Donut Shop. Remember Bernard up at 3 o'clock in the morning making donuts? I'm a cop. I'm a donut guy. I know about that, okay? We had 2 jewelry stores, Elites and Kapalki's. We had 2 or 3 dry cleaners. We had 3 bakeries, Kelly's, Marta's, and Tano's. We had 3 funeral homes. We had 3 paint stores. 2 of them sold glass and windows, and I recall one of them replaced automotive glass. We had 7 car dealers, Triangle Chevrolet, Southern Motor, which was Cadillac, Buick, Pontiac, and Oldsmobile. It later became Valtteri Motors. That's where I bought my first car. Sayers Motor sold Plymouth and Chrysler. Hey Dad Motors sold Dodges. Rossi Motors sold AMC and Rambler, and Gateway Motors sold Fords, and the Toller Motors sold Mercuries. We had 2 dealers for farm implements, Ayupa's and H&M Implement. We had a taxi service, 2 shoe repair shops, a hobby shop, and a tailor. We had a Greyhound terminal. We had a train terminal, both with full-blown stations. We had 2 lumber yards. We had a feed store and a farm supply store. I remember when babies could be born in our hospital. That doesn't seem the problem, the situation any longer. For those of you like me, having lived here your entire life, or a fair part of it, and having endured the decline of our hometown in our community, I think a deeper appreciation of the opportunities presented to us tonight to sustain our community are ripe for us to do what it, how much more are we going to give up? Where are we willing to draw a line in the sand and say, no mas, this is where it ends. We are going to step up, we're going to do what it takes. To that point, I digress a lot, bear with me. In the voter's guide, here's an advertisement of which I am quite proud, mostly because I wrote it. In the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verses 1 through 8, we are told, to all seasons, to all things there is a season. In 1965, the British rock group The Byrds released a song titled Turn, Turn, Turn. And like Ecclesiastes, it told us there's a time for every purpose. Borrowing from those two references, we, the committee of Los Animas County, Keep the Heart Beating, want to remind voters that now is the time to step up and do the right thing. This is our time. Vote for this county, vote for your community, vote for your friends and neighbors, and vote for yourself. Vote yes on 1A. I hope that makes my point. It's very important that we do for ourselves. Now, there are haters. All you got to do is look at Facebook. And people who oppose this, no way I'm voting for that. I'll vote for it if I get to make the decisions how it's spent. Okay, that's always going to be there. But how are those people stepping up to help? What is the solution you offer? How is it going to make it different? We need to do this. Our area is declining. Population, between 1970, when I graduated from Primero High School, go Bulldogs, and to the 2010 census, our population dropped 7%, just under 10,000 people to about 9,200. Now we're a little bit less than that. Between 2010 and 2013, we're down to 8,465. Those two combined represent a decrease of 15% of our population between 1970 and 2013. I know that my 3 children don't live here. One of them is in Chicago and the other 2 are in Denver. From my experience, I have seen the loss of good paying jobs. As I told you, or as you may know, I worked for the Colorado State Patrol for 29 years. I remember when it had a full-blown State Patrol dispatch center. Well, we relocated that to Pueblo. There went all those State Patrol state-paying jobs. I saw a nursing home transition from a state-run facility that had registered nurses who cared for my father and my uncle, and part of the time my mother was there, to a lesser-skilled residential private-run hospital. And I'm a private-run nursing home, and I'm not knocking Trinidad in. Do not misunderstand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we no longer have registered nurses working there. As a member of my family, having been coal miners for many years, my family immigrated in the early 1900s to be coal miners. Beginning with the closing of Valdez Mine in 1960, we started to see a decline in fossil fuels. We are trying to reinvent ourselves. We are trying with the city of Trinidad, who is a bigger community, to try and upgrade our standard of living here. Again, how much more are we willing to give up before we take responsibility for the community in which we choose to live and make it the success that it needs to be for all of our common benefits? Government funding, income tax, sales tax, property tax, fees and licenses. Los Animas County is solely funded by property taxes. We have a little bit in terms of fees, marriage licenses, building permits, things of that nature. But primarily, we are funded with property tax. We've tried to initiate sales taxes in the past, but they've consistently failed. I never understand the wisdom behind voting that down. If we had a sales tax, the people who are guests in our community would help us share the burden, but that's not the case. We tried that last year. State law prohibits us from doing it 2 consecutive years, so the earliest opportunity to approach the sales tax will be next year. And I don't know what the political wisdom is in doing that. For this year, to put a tourniquet on the bleed of county services, we have no choice but to ask for property tax increases. Marijuana tax, let's go there for just a minute. That's a contentious situation. I was a cop for 39 years. Don't think the marijuana was a tough pill for me to swallow. But I've also lived in this community for 64 years, and I, as previously described, see all that was happening to it. So I take a deep breath. I say marijuana is a legal commodity. The county has chosen not to do that, and that's okay. But the distinction between city and county is Los Animas County does not derive any benefit from the marijuana tax. That solely goes to the city of Trinidad. It's unfortunate, but the city of Trinidad is stepping up. Just at our last meeting, Michelle, did we not agree that we would help support the issues with the district attorney office by a one-time shot of $50,000 as an infusion to help sustain and stabilize that office? Because we realize that in community, we derive benefit from the services of that district attorney's office. That's what it's all about, and that's my point tonight. County services. Airport. On Facebook, some citizen commented, why do we need an airport? Because it's essential to economic development. Look what happened in Raton. They maintained their airport, and now they have a huge contract with DOS Aviation, which is a big shot in the arm for their economy. We have public health, tonight represented by Kim Gonzalez, in the event I get technical questions that I don't understand. They do more than give you immunization in school. They do a plethora of services for the residents of Los Animas County. The coroner. In my years in law enforcement, I worked very closely with the coroner on too many unfortunate circumstances. But it's essential that we do that. And later I'll read, or I will tell you what state law requires from each of our elected officials. Our coroner now is so strapped that since June, he's been working in a negative budget. In all of 2015, he processed 48 deaths. Through the end of June of 2016 this year, he processed 45. When the folks in the train accident, when that happened, he could not afford to transport the bodies to Castle Rock, where they could have the level of autopsy necessary for a commercial vehicle crash, have the autopsy performed, and have the bodies returned for the family's benefit. So only because of a professional relationship and the generosity of the Douglas County coroner, she told our coroner, I'll come and get the bodies, you pay for the autopsy, and I'll bring them back. The Department of Human Services, there are those who believe that all they do in that little fort is hand out food stamps and welfare checks to lazy people who do not want to work. Nothing is farther from the truth. Arlene Lopez is here tonight to attest and to answer any questions should they arise. What is that the Department of Human Services does? I know from my own experience with my own parents, they were instrumental and helpful in having me be able to provide the necessary care and the concerns for my aging parents when that time came and they had exhausted all their own resources. We have planning and zoning, which gives us a direction for what we're trying to do with growth. We are partnering with the city. We share the building inspector for that purpose so that we can get maximum bang for our buck. Excuse me. We make very short work of the time offered by Mr. Robinson, the building inspector, because he's a busy guy. I know that because when I get to the courthouse at 7, he's waiting. He doesn't start till 7:30, but he's there early to take care of his office work, and he's in the field all day long. Then he comes back at just before his appointed time of departure, about 3, and usually leaves the building about 4 or 4:30. He's a busy guy. He invests himself in terms of his service in our community. We need to invest ourselves in funding his work. Emergency management.